All right, let's talk about the offseason. Some big stuff, little stuff. Mainly want to focus on things I haven't already done videos on. So, with DeAndre Ayton, I mean, I guess there is a chance he's going to be part of some move that might be the most pieces ever moving in a basketball trade, apparently, where it's a sign and trade to the Nets, or he's part of something that eventually leads to Kevin Durant in Phoenix. Maybe Ayton would be going somewhere else. Sign and trades get weird because, of course, if the team taking the guy is above a certain amount of money, they just can't take him. They get hard capped. Also, Ben Simmons being on the Nets complicates who the Nets can actually acquire in a KD trade because of weird CBA stuff. If we look at teams that are not the Nets, my favorite one for Ayton would be Indiana, who did open up some more cap space after the Brogdon trade, but we assume the Suns would just match whatever offer Ayton got, even if they don't want to give the guy a max contract for X amount of seasons, right? Because you just can't lose him for nothing, as I keep saying. So then you would think about a sign and trade between Indiana and the Suns. And again, if Ayton is destined to end up in Brooklyn in this apparent massive sign and trade, then whatever on this one. But you look at Miles Turner and you look at Buddy Hield. I'm not saying both of them would be in the move, but I imagine Phoenix would definitely want at least one of those guys for Ayton in a sign and trade. Anyway, let's move on to some max contracts. Number one, Bradley Beal. This is just what Bradley Beal wants, man. Whether that is to just get paid from the Wizards and just be on the Wizards and that's that, or to give this thing a year or two with Porzingis and Rui Hachimura, and they got Monte Morris, they got Will Barton. If I'm looking at the Eastern Conference right now, I can't confidently say that they're a playoff team next year, and I definitely cannot confidently say that they'll make, let's say, round two. The only chance they have of that is Rui becomes a monster at scoring within the three-point line while also improving his outside shot, or more so shooting more. He did shoot a good percentage from three last year for what it's worth. You would need peak Porzingis, and we've been asking for that for a long time now. KP's contract will be expiring after this upcoming season, which could open him up to some sort of a trade. Like, there are still some possible moves the Wizards can make down the road. You could also hope that Corey Kispert becomes, I don't know, Ray Allen or something. It just doesn't look great after this Beal move. And I think the energy that you feel around this signing and just kind of what it signs the Wizards up to be, or at least what it appears to be, can always be wrong. This is the reason why the Spurs traded DeJounte Murray. Yeah, he would not have gotten the max contract that Beal has gotten here. But, hey, when you give one guy a lot of money, it gets scary. Speaking of a lot of money, Zion, of course, got his max extension. I'm happy that this happened, given just all the noise around this situation, right? And now, I feel like what we keep saying about Zion is what we're just going to have to say after this deal. Hopefully he's healthy. Hopefully he's taking his health as seriously as he can. And when I look at that starting five where CJ, I guess CJ is just your point guard. CJ, Ingram, Herb Jones, Zion, Valanciunas. I would like to appreciate that Herb Jones is by far the best defensive player in that unit. But, man, I mean, you think about Valanciunas, the way that Valanciunas can attack switches, which right then and there freaks teams out when they start running screen actions with Ingram and CJ, whether it's on ball, off ball, especially when Valanciunas is screening in some way. Like, teams just don't want to switch those actions because Valanciunas will just put you under the basket, right? And then you add Zion to that mix. I mean, we saw moments where Jackson Hayes was playing off of Valanciunas, cutting to the rim, dunker spot, whatever. And now you just put Zion there. And there's going to have to be more balance of, like, point Zion versus everything else I just talked about between Brandon Ingram ISOs, Valanciunas, CJ pick and rolls and all that. But there's a chance that is just like a devastating offensive team. Anyway, let's get to some more niche stuff. Bruce Brown to the Nuggets for $13 million for 2 seasons. It's a hell of a bargain for the guy. Now, are there little concerns that teams won't guard him and, because he's not the best shooter or whatever? Even if he shot a good percentage, doesn't shoot that many, you know what I mean. I mean, yeah, but also the guy cuts. He's got like a second nature thing of just getting to the free throw line when he's left open or attacking the offensive glass or whatever. And of course, when you have movement around Jokic, especially when it's cutters and not just guys relocating around the three-point line, then that is great because Jokic just loves dudes cutting to the rim. And of course, teams are always going to respect Jokic from when he's outside of the paint and all that. We have seen Jamal Murray setting screens for Jokic. Could we see Bruce Brown doing it? Because Bruce Brown already loves setting screens. Sometimes the guy plays like a center, even if he's, 6'3", 6'4", whatever. He's also strong as hell, as we know. They also need him defensively. They picked up KCP, It did cost him Monte Morris. I think they're hoping for Bones Highland to have a bigger role this year. But Aaron Gordon, KCP, Bruce Brown, I think those are the type of defensive players you're going to want around Jokic, MPJ, and Murray. Now, with those three, look, MPJ, of course, the health is, it is what it is. I still think he's got potential to be like a pretty effective off-ball defender. There's a lot of IQ things and timing and all that he's got to work on, but the length is what it is. I mean, if he could be a good weak side defender where you're putting him on a blah shooter, I think there's potential there. No, I'm not expecting him to compete for an all-defense team or anything. Jokic is good defensively. The advanced stats say he's elite. I don't agree with that, but he's certainly good on defense. And Jamal Murray's improved. Like, that can be a good enough defense around an elite offense to where, hey man, if it's ever going to be the Nuggets season, could be this upcoming one. I was also a fan of Kyle Anderson's contract, which was pretty cheap to the T-Wolves. They've got him and Jaden McDaniels around their Towns, Gobert, Edwards, D'Angelo Russell thing. I also wanted to talk about this Kevin Huerter trade that it's kind of throwing me through a loop, partially because Kevin Huerter just has always thrown me through a loop, because is it for a loop or through a loop? I don't know. Kevin Huerter, with his size, handle, and shooting form, struck me as a guy who should be scoring more than 12 points a game. And so now he's in Sacramento, and the protections on this pick, where it's lottery protected this upcoming season, then it's top 12, then it's top 10, then I believe it's a couple of second rounders. That to me is the Kings basically saying, we are okay with losing a late lottery first for Kevin Huerter. Or if we make the playoffs this year, then we lost like the 15th pick for Kevin Huerter. With that said, and by the way, for Atlanta's sake, they just got DeJounte Murray. They had to free up the backcourt a little bit. It probably felt good to get at least one pick back in the treasure chest, granted with decent amount of protections on it, as well as Huerter is not cheap. So his fit with Sacramento, I will admit, I don't really know what the Kings starting five is now. Obviously, you got Fox, Barnes, and Sabonis, but after that, between Huerter, Davion Mitchell, Malik Monk, Keegan Murray, I don't know what it's going to be. What I do believe is that Huerter can benefit a lot off of, obviously, Fox, Sabonis pick and rolls, but also if he can get involved in the Sabonis handoff actions game, then that could generate him some more open looks, and he could just be featured in this offense more than he was at Atlanta, where it was the Trae Young show. And okay, let's see it, man. Again, I've always thought Kevin Huerter just had a little more in him than he was able to show, with the biggest example of this being that Game 7 he had against the Sixers. I want to talk about the Lou Dort contract for a little bit. It's a lot of money, dude. I mean, I get it. The cap's going up a little bit, but I just don't know if OKC was competing with anybody else to give Lou Dort $87 million over 5 years, which looks a little worse than when you dive into the year-by-year number, where it's on average about $17 million. But even so, it's like, that is a pretty decent bet that Lou Dort's offense is going to keep on growing. I mean, like, I did a video on the guy when he was having a run of 20-something point games. Hey, the formula for Dort is catch and shoots from outside and just being a battering ram going to the rim. For what it's worth, I mean, he did average 17 points a game. It's just the efficiency wasn't exactly great.